Good evening. Had a few technical difficulties already this evening, but that's okay. Guess what? They let us back. So I'm Raven, and that is Kali Goddess, and
Hello.
our guest today is my blood sister, Cinnamonmoon.
Hi.
And I would try to play that show intro, but I don't know if it'll play. I'm going to try it and see, because it's Cinnamon's bio, and see if it'll play. This week, Raven and Kali Goddess welcome Cinnamonmoon. She has been walking a path of service for over 60 years as a shamanic teacher, non-denominational minister, and reader. She is the author of A Medicine Woman Speaks and was the host of her own radio show, Cinnamonmoon at Night, for 15 years. Cinnamon provides insight while matching spiritual seekers step for step as they lay their foundations and expand their consciousness. She offers support and development of their sensory abilities, combining practical methods, knowledge and insights to ease their process of assimilation. Her goal is to aid those who desire to live in spiritual awareness, providing them with the ability to make discerned decisions based in understanding and alignment with their own spirit sources of guidance and creation. As a reader, she becomes a vessel to receive messages by opening to her clairsentient abilities to trace energy signatures along with insight from her guides, the tarot, and the pendulum. This impacts information she is able to share with clients through a multi-level perspective. Whether it is spiritual development or reading, her sessions aid clients in expanding their awareness, raising their consciousness, and supporting their self-discovery to enhance their life experiences. Awesome, it worked. I'm so happy about that. Welcome, Cinnamon.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I think Kali is going to start the interview.
Okay.
So, Cinnamon, thanks for being on our show.
My
Our
pleasure.
first question is, what is it like to discover our destiny?
Well, the web of life has been woven with a strand for each of us to unravel, and we alone are the ones that can fulfill that destiny. Teachers, coaches, mentors, or adepts, whatever you want to call them, can help fine-tune these things and save many agonizing years of endless frustration from taking place. But with that help at your disposal, the journey of discovering your destiny it's just magical. We all have one. And at first we learn to open to our own gifts and abilities while learning more about our spiritual connections to all the various aspects of life, and we're all a part of that. And then in the process, we start to discover something we came to accomplish, what we're meant to contribute. And in that process, we learn more about what divine beings we truly are. And we start living a more divine authenticity. Everybody has a purpose.
So true.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, why is this self-discovery process important where foundational studies are concerned?
I think it's important that you come to know what a beautiful, powerful, magnificent spirit you truly are. And I'm saying you in the broadest sense of the word. Everybody in the world needs to discover this. It's important that you understand how you are a spirit living in a human experience, and that you stand in your own energetic light or energy field. And when you learn to make it shine or be felt, either way, some will see it, some will just feel it. But when you learn to do that, you become the proverbial beacon for others. And you'll know when that's happening because you're going to be attracting those who are very interested in spirituality to yourself.
I love that.
So I would like to ask, what is the difference between independent study and study and working with a coach?
Personally, I feel we do a bit of both. I mean, I know I spent the first 15 years of my life as an independent seeker, and I think we all tend to do that at first. But back then, teachers were very hard to come by. Things were very different, as nature-based spiritual practices were literally illegal back then. So I didn't encounter my teachers until I was in my 20s. And until then, I worked closely with my guides who came first when I was 5 years old. And then they continued to stay with me over the years. In my teens, I was voraciously reading everything I could. And then later started studying world religion and various shamanic traditions. But in the process, I learned that there's an enormous benefit to working with a spiritual mentor. And what would otherwise take an independent seeker anywhere from a decade on to accomplish, they can do it in roughly a year's time. And of course, your studies are going to keep going. And if you like that mentor well enough, you're going to stay with them for other things. But at the point someone has reached a year of foundational studies, they're pretty much on their own to decide what directions they want to go in and just go off and live their life and fulfill their destiny in whatever course that's taking them.
Well, I know I studied independently, and then I met you, and I think that I learned quite a bit from you in our conversations and talking and that and so forth. So I think you're right. I think we all start independently, and then I guess when the coach or when the person is ready, the teacher or the coach will come.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So who taught you to teach others?
Wolf.
Wolf is a teacher.
Yeah. I learned from observing my own various teachers over the years and taking the best of each style and incorporating it and making it my own, adapting it to my way of doing things. But it was Wolf, my totem wolf, who taught me to match the seeker step for step, simply because that's how she worked with me. She never pushed. Her patience with me has been amazing. And I learned to do the same. So I don't hold anyone to a time standard in my teachings. I feel we learn best at our own pace. And in that light, neither of us are wasting each other's time. So it's just how fast someone wants to go and how passionate they are about learning.
I agree with that totally. And I understand how sometimes our guides are probably sitting up there going, oh my God. When are they going to get it?
When Wolf first came to me, I was little, I was 5. And I was terrified because she came as a shadow figure. And she would sit at the end of my bed every night. She never approached me or anything, but I could feel her essence, and I was so afraid of her. And if I had to get up and use the bathroom, her shadow would follow me. And I would look for where's this coming from? What's the shadow and what's causing it? There was never anything I could figure out. I mean, she'd be on one wall and then she'd be on the next wall. It would just depend on the way the light was coming in. It was really different. And she waited a whole year before she came through further. Very
When-
patient with me. So
When did she tell you her name?
I named her. She never gave me a name. No,
Oh, okay.
I never got a real name from her. I never
Okay.
asked. I didn't think to ask. And then I named her and she was fine with it. So she responded to it.
Well, I think maybe sometimes they tell us and we just know it, you know, and that could.
We have wolf as a family totem. My granddaughter sees her. My daughter sees her. Elephant is another one. That went from my great aunt on down. So yeah.
I understand that totally.
Yeah. Well, you got a lot from your grandmother.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have wolf, I have panther, I have hawk has stayed with me all of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have several totems and they come and they go, but some of them never really go. They stay in your life.
They stay closer. Yeah.
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 I just want to say for our audience, feel free to ask questions as we go through the interview. If you have any questions for Cinnamonmoon, please type it in the chat.
We'll be happy. She will be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah. And my next question is, what do you like most about the path work that you do?
Oh, it's not just one thing, it's a combination. I've shared the sacred teachings for 6 decades, and it's a passion that still burns strong in me today. It's my destiny to do that, I guess. I love watching those that I work with light up when they discover the authenticity of their inner spirit and make that connection. It's exciting to see them discover their gifts and abilities. And when they connect to their sources of guidance while exploring the phenomena of the other spiritual experiences, I love helping them bring it all together, creating their own beautiful style. And I'm a believer that everybody has their own constructs of spirituality that develop in the process. So there's just something about helping them see how they're meant to use the knowledge and apply the skill sets in a day-to-day life, and then in service to others if they're called in that direction. But it's not just confined to the spirit realm. It's all one. It's in our daily lives too.
That's great. What about how do you determine who you will teach? And do they have to have experience or?
Yeah, I believe in a non-judgmental approach to helping someone. There are countless spiritual paths that can be walked, and we all learn to recognize our own. But it resonates with us. So my only criteria is that they ask me, and then I know that they're willing to discover their path through the foundations, and that they're hungry and motivated. If someone's just curious, I'll answer questions for them, but I'm not going to be delving into the details of teaching that much, you know. But if someone's hungry and they want to grow, I'm right there with them all the way.
The seeker has to seek.
I'm sorry?
They have to be seeking. Oh, the seeker or the student needs to be seeking the knowledge, right? Actively seeking.
Yes, they have to be asking. I don't think you can force feed anyone.
No, I don't think
that's just the way nature works, or learning works.
So is it my turn? I'm sorry. So what can somebody
Hi,
expect?
Sam.
What can somebody expect to gain from the foundations that you share?
Lots of things, really. They will quickly discover a deeply intimate relationship with the elemental forces, a variety of sources of guidance, connections to Creator, Mother Earth, and more. There are so many benefits to working with a spiritual adept who has the experience, the knowledge and the wisdom to share the sacred truths. And that brings forth the gain of assistance with deeper understanding, all the little nuances that concepts, practices, and experiences bring through, but the novice or the seeker that's new to it isn't going to catch on to them. And so you can point them out and say, this and this is going on too. Do you see it now? And they go, oh yeah, wow. And so it's all the little nuances and details. Otherwise, you're messing with things in a haphazard manner, and that can be very messy. Lots can go wrong, and you can regret doing things. So I think it really helps to learn a correct way of doing something. You can always adjust it as you go along, but I think it's important to know, like if you're going to do energy work, you don't just jump into it. You have to know where that energy's going and what you're putting into it personally if you're going to send something out, and how to go about it in a proper manner.
Oh, I totally agree with you,
Yeah.
because any modality that you get into, if you don't know what you're doing, you can cause quite a bit of havoc.
Oh, you can. Yeah.
And it's really important to have some sort of mentor to guide you. I wanted to ask, I was always taught myself to protect myself whenever I was doing any work whatsoever. Do you teach your students to protect themselves as they're
Absolutely.
going?
Absolutely. A full understanding of someone's abilities and applications lends a level of personal empowerment through the technique of creating sacred space, protection, meditation, doing shamanic journey work, dream walking, exploring dimensional realities, as well as there's benefits in expediting connecting with specific sources of guidance, the individual elements, dimensional entities, and of course, Spirit and Mother Earth. And by dimensional entities, we can bring in all sorts of things, angels, guides, master teachers, that type of thing. So by the time someone finishes the foundations, they should have a minimum of 14 sources of guidance they're working with, and for some it's quite a lot more. So it gets really exciting, and then people learn to interpret the signs and symbology that guidance uses, along with the messages sent their way, as well as an understanding of the structure and purpose of conducting ceremony and ritual, how to weave with the various energies in a right manner to recognize patterns and the purposes they serve, the purpose of shielding, what it does for you, how it protects you, and how I think as you go along, you learn different techniques, and your I don't have to put up shields today that I did when I first started. Okay.
Right.
I sage myself. I'm working with energy in a specific manner. And I call in my guides and my angels to work with me. So they're there. They're part of the protection, but you have to learn to get to them first before you can work on that level.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
a teacher is going to help, and then you recognize the different patterns, the purposes they serve, as well as what it's like to read energy signatures and develop a solid skill set of discernments and abilities and understandings so that you're working wisely instead of foolishly. And
Yes.
protection is something that I combine that with keeping your spiritual development initially private. You don't want to tell it to the whole, oh, I started spiritual lessons. You start telling everybody that, and they're going to start giving you their opinions and talk you out of it, or put imprintings into your subconscious because they disagree or they've got their own opinions or this, or it gets confusing for someone. So I think it's wise until you know what you're doing before you start telling other people what you're doing.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So your basic, like your fundamental, I think, don't you start with like the 4 sacred directions
And the 3 worlds. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you help with the assimilation process?
I can offer various techniques in overcoming challenges during developmental phases. That includes sessions around healing old wounds and cleansing negative areas of life that are part of the process. By sharing the nuances and pointing out again how they've been overlooked by the seeker. It helps train their eye to spot what others refer to as the unseen in action. And it's learning to see and hear and sense things in a new way on a new level.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So what you're saying in a way is that the student actually works very hard on healing themselves.
It's all about the student for that first year. It's not about interacting with other people on that level. It's about finding who you are. It's a journey of self-discovery and empowerment in a very humble and kind and compassionate way, where you're confident. The empowerment is a confidence level, but it's very kind and giving and loving. It's not something where you're out there with an ego somewhere.
I agree with that too. I just wondered about that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question about the shielding. I really liked what you were saying about understanding yourself and having a shield. I was wondering, do you also teach practices that are for like clearing away negative energies or attachments that someone might have? Is that part of the healing process?
If there's energy? A clearing of an attachment, I'm sending them to Raven.
Yes.
That's her specialty.
And,
but I think
awesome.
as you
thank you, Cinnamon. I appreciate that.
Yeah. As you grow spiritually, you create a spiritual family, and your intimate circle of spiritual friends are all going to have their areas of specialty, just like you do. And so there's a lot of referring back and forth among those individuals.
That's so true, because and you are my spiritual family. So, and now Kali is part of my spiritual family too.
Thank you.
She has many talents.
With the clearing thing, I think like what you're teaching is really important, though, the self-discovery thing, because how do you know if you would even need to be clearing negative energies or attachments if you don't know yourself in the first place, there needs to be
Exactly.
the discernment part, right? And that's
Yeah.
like the foundational study part.
Yeah,
Am I
but
right?
yes. And for someone that's just starting out, I'm going to teach them about sacred herbs that will allow them to cleanse themselves and purify before they do any work, or I recommend it on a daily basis, a couple times a day. I like centering morning and evening because the energy changes by day and by night. It's active in the daytime and it's quieter at night as a rule. So I teach centering and grounding practices, and I have exercises I have them go through so that they learn to be able to read their own bodies and feel the energies shift and change when they do things. You have to sensitize yourself.
Yes, I agree with that totally.
Mhm.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so what are your thoughts on different traditions?
I always strongly encourage people. I think that all traditions are good. I don't think one is superior to another. It's what you resonate with. But I strongly encourage people to find one that feels comfortable to them, one where the semantics are something they can relate to, they can understand. It feels like home, really. There's a simplicity to understanding the attraction to it because it just makes sense. And that's where they need to start. Doesn't mean you have to follow a tradition your whole life. You can go out there and be eclectic and make up your own if you want to. I don't care. Spirit doesn't care. Creator doesn't care. Um, what
That's
you
actually what I've done is I have several modalities that I
yeah,
resonate with.
yeah.
And I think you do too.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that all traditions are necessary because there are so many of us in the world, period, that, and we all think a little differently. So there's something for everybody. It's like mm, a garden of flowers. You don't want just all one kind, one color. You want the variety is what makes it beautiful. And it's the variety in life period that makes it beautiful. So why not a variety of traditions? I think they're all necessary. I think all gods are one god. They just have a million names for them. That's all.
That's
That's
beautiful.
a good statement. I love that statement.
Also, I love that metaphor about the garden because I'm a gardener, and a lot of people, they will come and see my garden and say, "Oh, it's so messy because we have such variety in the different types of plants. We have vegetables growing with the flowers and all sorts of different flowers, and the flowers are serving us by attracting beneficial insects. So
Sure.
it's a whole ecosystem that we're creating with the diversity, and it's definitely not everyone's flavor. They want like organized patches of certain vegetables and flowers,
Yeah.
but it works really well when it's diverse.
Yes, it does. And I know in indigenous teachings, they say plant this with that and this with that because they protect or support each other and are
Yes.
good for the nutrients, or they keep this away and that away. There's a lot to gardening if you go to the old school ways. And I think they're very sensible. You know, they didn't have the pesticides back then. And when you learn in that manner, you don't need them. You can just
Yeah.
plant certain plants. And Grandma used mothballs, you know.
That's what they did in the old ways. And I've also learned, since we're talking about variety and modality, when I learned under 3 different medicine men, they were from different tribes, and I learned different ceremonies for basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there's quite a bit of variety within the tribes. There's so much variety within all of the modalities. It's just not one thing.
No, and I think when you learn one modality, you're going to recognize those teachings in another tradition. They may have different names, but you're going to say, I know what they're doing. I know what they're talking about. I can do that. Okay. And you might add it to your own mixture of teachings or ways or approaches to things. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I took a class this weekend in magical creatures, and
Fun.
I learned from the medicine men about the animal nation, and it went right along the same lines.
I know. Yeah.
So yeah, what you're saying is absolutely true. I mean, once you learn, you will see it in other modalities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like one thing will just inform the next thing.
Yes.
And also you can learn to discern, like, when you're reading something or absorbing some information, does it ring like truly deeply in your being, or are you just reading? Like, there's different like resonance to how you might be taking in information, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think people need to learn volume control on those resonances, or even on the energy they're picking up. You can tune in deeper, I guess you could say, or tune it up and tune it down. Some people, when they first open to their gifts and abilities, they tell me they use words like it's so loud all the time, I can't shut it off, and what do I do, and how do and you have to work with them with regard to what they're experiencing and how it's coming at them, and then help them learn to I like to use the analogy, it's like a stereo tuner or a radio tuner. You change channels with a knob, you turn it up or down on the spectrum, and you tune into this station or that station, but it's also got a volume control and an on and an off switch. Well, so do you.
That's true.
Yeah. But you have to learn to use them. Otherwise, you're just turning knobs.
How long does
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Sam says that she'd love to see your garden, Collie. Maybe someday
Oh,
you
yeah.
can put the pictures up.
I will. Okay. I have another question for you, Cinnamon. How long does the spiritual development take?
I don't think we ever stop learning. It's pretty much a lifetime journey, but getting your foundations in place, if you're serious about it and you devote your time to it, can be done in a year. For some people, it's going to take 2 or 3 years if they're pokey with it. But in a year's time of serious study, you can accomplish a whole lot. I think that once the foundations are understood, like I said, you're going to be able to recognize them wherever you go. And while the semantics change, the foundations always remain true to themselves because they're universal truths. So it's over the course of years that follow where we build on those foundations. The foundations you start with are going to evolve as you go. We step out of comfort zones and we expand ourselves and we learn new things and we add that into the mix, and it just keeps going and going and going. Our development of skill sets and abilities are ongoing factors throughout life and become tools that are necessary for the experiences that will come our way as challenges to grow. We're always, always made ready for the next challenge in line. So whatever you've recently learned, and the next challenge that comes, if you apply that knowledge or skill set to the challenge, you've got the solution to it. If you forget about the lesson and you're just facing the challenge and you get consumed by it, you're going to be spinning your wheels. They're making you ready with what you develop to apply it next step.
Sam Blue has a question. She asked about how long did it take for you to learn all of this knowledge?
I'm still learning. I haven't stopped. You can't stop. I mean, you can, I suppose, but I don't. My path is a path of service. It has been for 60 years, and it's not changing. And I learn as much from those that I teach as I do from my own pursuits. I don't think you stop learning.
I totally agree with that. I always say, I have had students in the past, and I learn from my students things, and I continue to learn. And I feel like when you think you know it all, then you might as well stop, because I think you're in a bad space there.
Well, that's arrogance. That's ego. If you think you know it all.
Yes.
I see someone that's coming at me with that know-it-all attitude, I just go the other way. I don't even bother. I don't need it. Yeah. If they're that full of the self in that manner, I think that they're not going to hear anything you have to say or recognize any flaws in themselves. And it's a journey where we're always working on ourselves. We're always striving to improve. We're always learning and growing. And, you hit a point where you can teach, but, like I might have a client who say they've got a problem that's a little unique and different, and we have to try a couple of angles at it to solve it. And I sometimes have to get creative with the way we approach it. And in that creativity, I learned to do it another way. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we all keep going with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. We just have to adapt as we go, because things are changing so much now, and believe it or not, we have so many entities from other dimensions trying to help us, and we need to learn how to recognize some of that guidance and see it. And I know that I was taught to use the animal nation and the 4 directions and all of that. I mean, that's what my guidance was, but somebody else's guidance might be totally different from that. But how did you actually start on this path?
I was 5. I had some near-death experiences. I had whooping cough when I was 5, and I fell into a coma. And I don't know if we've got time for that story, but anyway.
No, we do.
I went into this coma, and I can still see the blackness.
I like the story. I think
I can still see the blackness. It's like a deep, dark, blackest, inky black, velvety feel to it. And inside there was a spinning pinwheel of red and white. And I was going down this white path, and all of a sudden this little man showed up, and he said, "You're not supposed to be here." And he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Tag, you're it." And he jumped over to the red portion of the wheel and started running up. And he would slow down and let me catch up to him. And just when I was about to tag him, he'd run ahead again. And he brought me back to the surface and out of the coma. And turned out to be one of my guides. He stayed with me all through my life.
Wow.
So
What an interesting
started,
story.
and that was at the same time that Wolf came forward. And then I started, I was out in the backyard one time and around that same age, and I was making a fort on the clothesline with pinning up sheets and blankets and stuff. And the wind came and it was messing with me. It kept blowing my hair in my face, and I got mad at it. And I said, "Go over there." And it did. And I went, "Wow." Okay. And then I went back to doing what I was doing, and it came back again and it blew in my face. And I sent it to another corner of the yard, and it went over there. And it was doing whatever I said, do it. So I thought I could boss the wind around, And you don't. You might bend to it, but you don't boss it around. But I learned I can talk to it, and it will. Like, my daughter left town and didn't tell me she was leaving town. And I was worried about her. So I called to the wind and I said, have her call home and let me know where she is. So I got a collect call from Chicago. She said, "Mom, I got you on my mind. What is there something going on?" And I said, "Well, I just wondered where you were. I hadn't heard you." So it gives the impression, it seeds somebody. It doesn't really necessarily talk to everybody else in the way that I communicate with it, but that's my style. I learned my own style of working with the elements at a very young age, and that continued, and my guides would teach me things, and they'd go, no, don't do it that way, do it this way, and I'd do it this way, and it would work. I didn't start scholastic studies until I was about 15. And then when I was in my 20s, I was in college and I was studying world religion and myth and philosophy and all the scholastic teachings I could get. And by the time I was in my 30s, I was meeting medicine people and other teachers and learning from them. And I met people from, Lakota, Ojibwe, Oneida, Delaware, Potawatomi, Mohawk, and Chippewa. I wonder who that is.
Actually, I wanted to say this one thing because it was you who taught me how to speak to the wind.
Oh.
And because you taught me all about the wind. Mm. And I'm very grateful for that, because that is such a useful tool.
It is.
It is. I mean, anytime I want to know something, I can just go outside and speak to the wind. Mm-hmm. Even if there is actually no wind, sometimes the wind shows up.
You call it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I was teaching my nephew how to call the wind. And so I'm doing little breezes, I said, you just call a little breeze and we'll watch the leaves start to move in the tree. And he'd do it, and the leaves would move right away, and he'd get all excited. And he'd go, "Okay, now I want a bigger one." And I had to slap my hand over his mouth. I said, "You're going to call a tornado, stop." But when you learn, you can call it and it comes. I think it's fun. It's an exciting thing to do. And each one of the elemental forces will respond to people. Every one of them.
Absolutely.
My stepfather was a Bohemian gypsy, and he was a fire starter. He could start a fire in the fireplace, in the campfire, from 20 feet away. He'd just snap his fingers and the flames would go up. He learned to work the molecules, with speeding them up or slowing them down. He could make the fire come or make it go. My sister, he was also very telepathic, and my sister would run out of the house screaming, "My daddy's a witch!" You know, she was. Yes. And then when we'd ask him, "Will you teach us this? Will you teach us that?" And he'd go, "No, you're not ready for it yet. You know, you got to grow up. You got to be a little more responsible before I teach you these kinds of things." You know, but I thought it was always so comical because he could start fires, and he was a fireman.
Oh,
He made his life
comical. That's like, yeah, that's awesome. I bet that was awesome growing up with somebody like that.
It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing.
He'd break a conversation. You know, you'd be talking about one thing and he'd interrupt it and he'd go, wait a minute. What do you want for dinner? This or that? And it would be what we were thinking about, you know, do I want this or that for dinner? And he'd say, well, which one is it? We'd just crack up. It was fun.
That's so funny.
So would you say that he was always encouraging you to believe in your, you know, special skills?
I had a very permissive family. We lived in a multi-generational home, my grandparents, my mother, my great aunt, and us. And my mother was into metaphysics and the occult. And my grandmother, when my grandfather passed away, she wanted to connect with him. She missed him so much. And she was going to tea rooms and seances and trying to connect with them. So they believed in the spiritual side of life. And so my interests were fostered. And then when my parents divorced and my mother remarried, she happened to remarry a Bohemian gypsy, and she lived vicariously through him and his gifts. And, you know, oh, my husband can do this, my husband can do that, but she never learned to do it for herself. But she held the interest, you know. She loved the paranormal. She loved the occult.
That's how that's how it was in my house, with my grandmother, my Nana. I mean, she taught me, actually, she's the one that taught me to make fire dance and to call the rain. And then Cinnamonmoon taught me to call the wind, which was really very cool. So I guess you would say there's no one right path, right?
No. I think that if you try to force feed people and say this is the only way it can be and this is real and that's not, and what you believe is false, and the only thing that's legitimate is if you believe what I believe, you're force feeding somebody, and they're not going to digest that. They're going to they're too full of what they believe. So I think that finding an adept to share the sacred mysteries from one tradition that we resonate with is a precious gift to ourselves. I feel that somebody has to be hungry, but I think that all gods are one God, and whether you know, if you're in a tradition that has multiple deities, you're looking at aspects of the gods of source. And it's a waste of time trying to adapt or be forced into a tradition that doesn't sit well with you, you know. But I don't think anybody should mock or put down in somebody else's tradition. I don't believe in that.
I think that's true as well. I don't think that we should ever belittle anybody's traditions or beliefs, because
why?
I mean, we're all different people, and we all have our own belief system.
Yeah. And if you do what you believe in and you are coming from your heart and you're a good person, you're not going to harm anybody. You're not doing wrong in the world. You're doing is good things. So
that's exactly it. And and I believe this, and I think that you believe it too, that once you do harm to another, either human being, entity, animal, anything, that comes back on you.
Yes, it does.
And magic has a price to it. I mean, your intent is like 9/10 of the law when you're creating. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And I teach, it'll come back 3 to 10 times stronger.
Yes.
So if you do something bad, it's going to backlash at you. And it's going to, if you stretch a rubber band until it breaks, what happens? It comes back and it snaps at your hand and it stings and it hurts.
So what do you,
that kind of a reaction, it just, what you put out into the world comes back at you. So if you're putting good out, what goes around comes around. If you're doing good, good is going to come to you. If you're doing bad things will happen to you, because that's the kind of energy you're going into. We attract what we project.
What if somebody is sending you bad energy?
My shields are up. They're not going to get me.
Do you send it back, or do you just?
That I learned from you. When somebody is sending negative thoughts or energy at you, send it back with blessings, because if they're happy, they're not going to do bad things. And so you bless them and make their life better, and then they leave you alone.
And I think that's so important for all of us to understand that just because somebody's sending you bad energy and bad things doesn't mean that you have to return bad.
No, you don't retaliate.
And I kind of learned it from, I think we learned that together.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Kali, you want to ask a question? I'm sorry.
Sure. Well, do you feel that there's something that like the independent seeker can't achieve on their own? They need to go to a teacher for that?
Yeah. A major factor in all of this is the discernment process that develops in the process of working with an adept. If you discover some of the courses that your spiritual path is taking independently, that's okay. But the nuances of clear discernment are going to be missing, since they're so easily overlooked at first. One invites trials and travails by fire when you're an independent seeker. And the backlash for doing those things, we were talking about that earlier, with an improper manner can be devastating. It can be very harmful. With an adept at your side, the understanding of how the discernment applies to your personal gifts and abilities, and how to confront certain conditions or circumstances, certain situations, how to conduct yourself in a purposeful service is a vital benefit. So knowing your path and why you walk it, what you came to contribute to this world, and what you're here to learn, and why, lends so much clarity. An adept that teaches well is never going to dictate your path to you. They're going to help you uncover it and discover it for yourself, but you're the one discovering, not them. So they let you make your choices, and then will assist you as you learn to attune to it. Each of us in our incarnation at this time hold a deep purpose, and the foundations of our spiritual path are going to bring that purpose to light for us. So I think the foundations are very important, and once you have them, bless you, go off and live your life, and keep learning, keep adding to it. I have my teachings, and I taught them to my daughters, but both of them have gone they are both very spiritual individuals, but they each have their own areas of interest and specialty that are very different from my own. Very different. Both of them are different from me and from each other. But they're beautiful journeys. So, River.
Do they teach as well?
What?
Oh, are they also teachers, your daughters?
Gypsy she's gone into the paranormal field, and she has done seminars and taught on that level. She has stepped away from it for the time being, because there are other things going on in her life that need her attention, but I'm sure she'll go back to it. She's been involved in it for many years. River teaches, but she teaches differently than I do. She has her own ways. She reads for people, and she is inclined to follow a more Middle Eastern philosophy, I guess I would say. Mine is more Western.
Wow,
Hers
that's
is
cool.
more Eastern philosophies.
Uh-huh.
She just resonates
Yes.
with that. So I think they both are contributing to the world and learning as they go, and they'll continue to learn. Neither one of them want to stop learning. They keep expanding all the time. So
Yeah.
we have some really good talks.
Absolutely. I bet
awesome.
you do. Well, and it's nice
Mhm.
that, they learn the foundations and the basics from you, and they found their own way. I
Mhm.
mean, it is just like what I learned, and my grandmother said, this is how I do it, but you have to find your own way.
Exactly.
And like you were saying, you can't feed it to somebody else.
No,
They have to resonate with it.
they do. They have to like it, want it.
I have
or
another question
you're
for Cinnamon.
wasting your breath and their time, and they're wasting yours.
Yeah. Holly?
Callie, you had a question?
Oh, okay. Sorry. What if somebody wanted to? Yeah, if somebody wanted to get a reading from you, what would that look like? Is it over the phone, and what kind of information might
I
they
do
receive?
either live chat or phone sessions, and it's up to them. I do 30 to 60-minute sessions. You can have one or the other. And in that time, I start the reading, and they'll give me a question and I'll answer it. And then invariably, that'll elicit another question and another one. So it's just how much time you want and how deep you want to go into matters, or how many directions you want to take. Some people want a session for an hour and they've got 3 or 4 or 5 questions they want to ask. And some people can ask 5 questions and they just want short, quick, just yes, no, maybe. That can take a half hour, and you can get a lot done in a half hour that way. But if you want an in-depth look at things, it's going to take an hour, sometimes more.
And are you working with your spirit guides during the call, or how do you divine the information?
Well, before I do a session, I go through my own little ritual. I'm lighting my candles, and I'm smudging, and I'm aligning myself, centering, and I'm just getting into the headspace. I call in my guides and angels, and then I get my cards out, and I've got my pendulum if that's called for. But I work on a multi-level. I mean, I can be doing a reading with the tarot, and my guides will pop in, and they'll go, no, 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 go this way. I'll go, okay. So it's a good, a variety of modalities combined, multi-level read. And I like doing it that way. Plus, I've got my own, intuitive abilities, and they come into play. And So it's a mixture.
Awesome. So where can the viewers find you at?
Okay, they can find me on Facebook under Cinnamonmoon. I have a page there that I just put back up. And they can find me at the Two Moons Talking group over there. You can go to my website. That's at Spirit Lodge, all one word, itgo.com. Or you can reach me at Cinnamonmoon, all one word, the number 2, at comcast.net.
Awesome.
And I just want to say, since I met you last week, I've been on your Spirit Lodge website reading so much interesting information. It's like a whole library of stories and resources on tarot or crystals or herbs or all sorts of things, feng shui, shamanic stuff. I found one post about how to build a garden for fairies to attract fairies.
Yeah.
And I was inspired. I think I'm going to go do that.
Are you going to make a fairy chair?
Yeah. So you take an old chair and then you take out the seat and you put a planter in there and put certain flowers, and the fairies are supposed to come join you from that. So, yeah. So
That's
that's
beautiful.
a great resource. People should come check that out.
Yeah, it is designed and open to the public. It's free to the public. You can reach me for sessions if you want. I have seminars there that you can buy. There are courses, certification courses. I offer 3 of those. And the library is very extensive. There's over 1,100 articles there. And it's all broken down into different topical areas. So there's a lot that the seeker or the student that's curious about things can go there and find a lot of information. We have a beautiful totem section, one of the best on the internet, I think. That's what I hear.
Well, I always go to it for the totem section because it really helps me. I mean, I don't know it all, and gosh, when something happens and a totem appears, and it's so much easier for me just to go up to Spirit Lodge and look that up. And I get such great information from that.
Yeah. There's a lot of it's not just my teachings. Years ago, we had a forum website before social media came into play, and people were looking for places to gather. So I took the library from there. When everybody started going to social media, the forums went dead. And so I put it all into the library, and I saved some discussions, and I saved the different topics that were really primary foundational discussions that people tend to have. So if you're looking to get involved, go there and check it out. There's something for everybody there.
I believe that's true. So we have certainly enjoyed you being with us tonight, and I feel like we have learned so much, and I'm so grateful that you came on our show, and I love, honor, and respect you, and I'm just happy that you came on the show. Thank you so much.
Well, I thank you for having me. It's fun. I haven't been on radio or video for a few years now, so it's nice. I enjoy being back.
I think we would love to have you back and do a couple more shows.
Sure. Anytime.
What about
that'd be awesome.
Great. Yes.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an honor to be on.
So audience, please like, share, and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell on YouTube, and get the word out for our new show. And we'll be here every other Friday 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live with a guest.
Or something new and interesting.
Yep.
We also would like for you to visit our websites. I know mine is ravenshealingarts.com. And Kali, yours is?
It's bio.site/Kali, Kali, Marlier, Marlier.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we asked that everyone have a fabulous evening, what's left of it.
There are crazy thunderstorms happening right here. It just shook this room.
Oh, goodness. Cinnamon, would you like to close with anything?
Well, I just want to send blessings to all your listeners and to you ladies. And I want to thank you for joining me. Stay positive now with this Mercury retrograde coming up. It's a time to redo, rethink, reconsider. So don't let it throw you off. Just take a step back and finish what you've been procrastinating on, and then it'll lift and you can scoot along again.
That's beautiful. I like, with Mercury retrograde, I like to see it as a time to communicate less with the outside world and more with myself and my own spirit guides and guidance. And
yeah, absolutely. Because it causes technical difficulties and miscommunication and missed appointments, all kinds of things. Don't let it frustrate you.
Beautiful.
It's so beautiful to talk to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. You girls go on and have a good evening yourselves now.
All right. Love you.
Okay.
Bye.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.